All right, you magical creatures. 10 o'clock Tuesday. All 19 universes are listening to this show. They sit around in like Mars and Jupiter. And 20 is it 20 now? So we can't wait till 10 o'clock. See Molly, Mark, that big-headed Tom Laidlaw. How's everybody doing? Molly, how are you?
Good.
Fantastic. Good morning.
Good. Mark, how are you?
Doing great, man.
Good. Mark's company's called Patriot Training Systems. What's your company called, Molly? I'm sorry, I should know that.
Creative Nutrition Solutions.
Nice. How'd you come up with that name? Did you just think of that yourself?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. It's been I started my company 20 years ago.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's been forever.
Long time.
When I started my agent business, I was really creative with the name. I called it Laidlaw Sports Management. Like I really had to do a lot of thought on that one.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that name?
I don't
Have a
know.
phone book?
Yeah, totally. Mimsy, how are you doing, Mimsy? Magical creatures. Morning, Mimsy. Barry Shelley up in beautiful Cooperstown, New York. A veteran. You haven't had a chance to meet Barry, have you, Molly?
No, I haven't. Just through interaction on our little talks here, but
Great human being, really fantastic person. Huge heart, does a lot of things for other people. So, all right, Molly, I got a couple of questions, sourdough questions.
oh boy.
So I've had yeast in the fridge for a couple of years. It's no good anymore, right?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Couple
Though, here's a test. This is a fun test that you can do. It's like a little food science experiment.
Right.
If you take hot water,
right,
and you sprinkle your yeast, like a teaspoon of it, in the hot water,
right,
and a little, just like a pinch of sugar. If it's still active, it will get foamy is the best maybe description I could give. It gets like this foamy looking texture within about 5 minutes. If that doesn't happen and it like just sinks to the bottom like a lead weight, it's not doing anything.
It could be like 5 years old too, to be honest with you. I'm starting to think now it's been in there a while. I'm terrible. Okay, let's get on to another question, Mark, and you and this too. So expiry dates on food, Mark. What do you think? Are they really expiry dates, or is that just get you to buy more stuff?
I would adhere to it as close as you can. Yeah. Because you don't want to eat anything that's got any bacteria, right, Molly, building up inside, and so chuck it.
I have probably a different opinion, Mark. So you're absolutely right. So expiration dates are important to pay attention to. But really what's interesting about them is food companies literally have a chart, and based on the ingredients that they're putting in the product, that is how the expiration date is determined. So what's very okay, I have a product. So let's check what date. Let's see. When is this good until? 1/29/2026. I brought these pickles. Remember we were talking about pickles last time? Yeah. Anyhow, so if you have these in your cupboard, and let's fast forward to the future, and it's February 29th, 2026. It's packaged. There's no oxygen getting in here. You're probably fine. If you had opened this and it's sitting in your refrigerator and now oxygen and stuff is getting in there and your hands have probably been in the package taking some out, do not keep it in your fridge until 2/26. So you have to use your intuition. Like if you have a salad dressing that's a couple months old, it's probably fine. Mm-hmm. But use your smell and your taste. Really smell and visual indicator first, always. And
so like the sour cream that's in my fridge that has a bit of mold growing on it's probably no good anymore.
Oh, that's good. It's penicillin.
Penicillin.
So you need to be careful. But no, I am not a fan of just immediately toss it out if it's past the expiration date, because expiration dates are a bit arbitrary. But you do have to be super careful because you don't want to eat anything that's going to make you sick.
Yeah.
My kids come over
here because we eat what we have for the day and we eat it. So
yeah.
Okay, guys, I'll poll both you two. How many people do you know that makes their own pasta?
Tom Laidlaw.
Yes. Good answer.
I saw that. Not many. I have done it before. I took a cooking class actually to learn how to make it. And it is such a cool process. When I got back from that, I was like, I'm buying myself a pasta press, full steam ahead. And my husband was like, Molly, pause. We
What?
have enough kitchen gadgets.
Oh, okay.
How
Yeah,
often
yeah,
are you doing this homemade pasta thing?
I know.
It's
It is one
time.
of those things. Yeah, it is a little time consuming, but once you get it going, you know what you're doing. It happens quicker. But yeah, like the whole kneading the dough is the one thing I'm learning. Like I used to worry in the past when I made something, I thought the dough would be too dry the way it looked. But I realized the more you knead it, then that kind of you shouldn't really wet it anymore.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Yeah.
How delicious was it, Tom?
Oh, you know what? Unbelievable. I really noticed the difference, the freshness. I was really surprised. I'm a pasta. I enjoy my pasta. That was pretty healthy. Oh, here's another question, real quick, both of you. So there's bleached flour and there's unbleached flour. What's the difference? Obviously bleach, but is it good, bad, indifferent? What is it?
Mark, you want to go first?
Well, I don't know per se. I don't really use wheat flour. I use almond flour. I use other things other than wheat because we're a little sensitive here to it. But I'd venture to say that anything that the word bleach is attached to, I'd want to consider. Not,
Right.
I'd probably go the other direction. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you, Mark. If you can buy unbleached flour, it's literally just a process that it's making that flour that bright white.
Oh,
So it's really a color thing. And sometimes bleached flour probably has a little softer, finer texture. But I am a big fan of, not using bleached products if I can. And then my favorite flour actually is whole wheat pastry flour because it's ground really fine. And if you use it in products, it doesn't have that gritty wheat taste going on.
right.
Yeah, bleach is for the laundry.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Like, so they actually bleach it? Like it's the
That's
same
what
process?
it is. Yeah, bleach is bleach.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's funny. I never paid attention to the flour before. Now I've turned into this Mr. Baker, right? And I'm making pasta and bread and all this. So.
Got to have pizza flour.
Yes. Yeah.
We could do a whole thing just on flours. And Mark, the gluten-free flour element too. There's so many choices now.
Yeah. There's rice. There's almond. There's plenty to fill a gap for sure. Yeah.
Even this one girl that has her own pizza truck that I met her at Costco actually. Me and my big mouth just started talking to her, and she says like even the temperature of the water is important. Like you're supposed to have the water like at 100 degrees roughly. Right?
It's an art for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, Mr. Puttenvink, you have a little demonstration for us today.
No, so I just was talking to you about. I sent Tom a little video, and we're kind of banged up because we've been around for a bit. And I know I have really, really bad shoulders. I got a slap tear here. I got AC impingement and all kinds of stuff going here. So to do any kind of chest movement or chest presses or anything like that, those days are over because of the condition of my shoulders. And although bench press, I'm not really big on it in general because as it applies to life and athletics, if you're on your back and you're doing this, you just got ran over. So that shouldn't happen. But going back to the chest. So now when I saw this guy on the internet, and I kind of poo-pooed it at first, and then I tried it, and it's really effective. So you have really light dumbbells, and you have them at your side here, and you come up, and it's like doing a standing fly. It's the same motion as a fly if I was supine and my back was on a bench, except now very lightweight. I definitely feel that connection right away to my pecs. And again, this is like a beach muscle. It really doesn't serve a lot of purpose, but you can throw it in once in a while. And it's a good way to do it if you do have shredded up shoulders that just.
Well, it's important for you, Mark, because you walk around with a shirt on all the time. So it's important.
That's very important. Exactly. I want to be straight, and I want to,
Well,
Mark,
you haven't see Mark in action during the summer. So there's no shirt on, flip flops. This is how he lives his life during the summer. So.
I love it.
I hate shoes. Yeah.
No, I love that tip, Mark, because I was a swimmer.
And
I have to be really careful with what I do with my shoulders. In fact, sometimes at the gym, I'm like, I can do a little bit more today. Let's do another peg. And then like up in my neck, like I just can't lift much weight.
My whole theory, my belief system is that in the gym, your movement should be 70 to 30. In other words, 70% pulling as opposed to 30% pushing, because everything we do in life is in front of us. We're on a keyboard, we're driving, we're cooking. So that we kind of get, and this is where people start to slouch over the interior portion of our body, our deltoids in particular, start to pull us forward. So a lot of retraction movements, a lot of seated rows, a lot of pull-ups if you can do them, a lot of standing rows, anything that is a pulling movement. And again, even for just life, so you don't push somebody out of a burning car, you pull them out. right?
Mm.
You don't
Interesting.
push yourself over the fence when there's dogs chasing you. You do a pull up and get out of Dodge City. So it's really important, 70-30, even 60-40, but certainly on the higher percentage end of pulling as opposed to pushing. And this is why I think we have a lot, and I know I do, because for years I was a big believer in the bench press, and I was able to bench a lot, but now I'm paying for it. It was kind of pointless when I look back upon it.
So let me ask you a question. It's kind of an etiquette question, also like a little theory question. So in the gym, I met this really nice couple, Carlos and Maribella, and they work out hard. They're every day, pretty much 6 or 7 days a week. But they do a lot of stuff like, let's say they're doing a pull down. They'll do like the whole momentum pull down, right? They get the whole weight thing going, leaning back. Incorrect, right?
Yeah, it's incorrect. Those kind of movements when you're, in a closed open chain movement, you want to make sure that your back is stable. So if you have nothing to lean up against, you want to make sure that you're using really strict, form, because you don't want that spine swinging around, especially when there's resistance attached to it. All right. And you do see that a lot. Maybe it's an ego thing, or they just haven't been coached up in the proper way of doing it. Maybe they think that's the proper way to do it. But yeah, you want to lock in, retract your shoulders, and pull down in a nice smooth movement, as opposed to flying back and body weight. And if you let go of that thing, it's going to take your face off.
So the theory is
you go to the gym. I'm not trained in the way you are, and I see people doing stuff that I'm like,
yeah.
Is it hard for you?
That's why I don't go to the gym.
Yeah.
I train at home. I actually do train in the gym a little bit, but for me and Tom too, we've been in gyms for decades, and I've seen a change. Used to be you went in, you did your work, there was some socialization, and now it's probably more socialization than work, which is okay. That's fine. Everybody needs to be around people. I get that. But now you got the social media. Everybody's taking videos, and there's a lot of stuff like that. My thing is, if you're in the gym, now there is some science behind this. If you're in the gym, your testosterone to time kind of goes up, and in about 45 minutes it peaks, whether you're male or female. And then unfortunately, it really crashes, it plummets. But at the same time, you get this huge spike of cortisol, which is it's not androgenic. It's actually tissue damaging. But you need to find balance. But the point is, if you're doing resistance work past 45 minutes, you're actually doing more damage than good.
Oh, really?
I think that if you can't get a really intense workout in 20 minutes, you're socializing a little bit too much, And there was my friend Jeff Remo, a good friend of mine, coached Marlboro High School football for decades, won a couple state titles. Back in the day, we really talked about what kind of movements we want the athletes doing. And you will see athletes doing bicep curls, which is really, it's a beach movement. It's not really specific to football. And we had a saying, what do you do with a team that has biceps in their weightlifting protocol? Make sure they're on your schedule. All right. So there you go.
Really? Curls for the girls doesn't make sense.
Curls for the girls, tries for the guys. Yeah. So there you go.
Oh, I've never heard the tries for the guys. That's cool. Nice. Very nice. All right, Molly, food question.
Okay.
So,
I'm ready.
I'm watching these reels. This guy comes on. I can't remember his name. I mentioned this to Mark the other day. His name's Gary. Can't remember his last name though. Very and he's great. So when he speaks, he's really he knows everything, right? He's like whatever he says. But then he's got another guy that follows him that totally debunks everything he's saying. Like he had this theory that if you blend your fruits, you lose a lot of the nutrition by blending the fruits as opposed to eating them just normal. Is that true? But see, I guess my point is too that how do you know what to believe? Like for people that are trying to learn and they go on reels and all these people stand up there and they're but some of these like the way they talk, they're good. Like this guy really sells the fact that yes, this is the facts.
Well, I'm with you. There are times where a reel will come across my feed and I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
It catches me because you're right. It's said so convincingly.
Yes.
And here's the thing. Anybody can be a nutrition expert, right? Sure. If you feel you know a lot about food, there is no credential to say, I am a nutrition expert. There's literally no credential. So it's registered dietitians as far as, the food and nutrition expert, and then certainly chefs and culinary people too, right? Trained chefs. It's hard because if I had $1 for every piece of misinformation out, or if any of us had $1 for every piece of misinformation, and I suppose that probably is across most professions, but I feel like nutrition is there's a kind concentration of just
Yeah.
garbage.
And it's like I said, if you just listen to like this guy in particular, he's like so authoritative. Like what he says is it, and they ask him questions. Oh yeah, that's for sure. And he's got all these scientific things. And it's funny because this other guy who seems like he's a registered dietitian, he's much more knowledgeable. You can tell it's just driving him nuts, right? So he goes and does all the research, shows the science why he's telling the truth. So there's another one too. So the staying on bananas. So one guy said that you should eat bananas when they're green because if they ripen, then they get more sugar in them. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is true.
Oh.
And think of like if you've eaten a green banana, they almost, well, if you've had a plantain, I think they almost taste more like a plantain when they're green. They're like crunchier, right? They're not as soft. And it is sugar that is forming. So the sugar content would be higher. But here's the thing. I'm not overly concerned about the sugar content most people are getting from fruit. It's the processed sugars coming from, candies, sweets. That is where people need to focus their efforts. Can I tell you a funny story? I had this lady who's like, Molly, I am cutting out sugar. I am not eating any more fruit, maybe a few raspberries because they're higher fiber or whatever. I said, okay, tell me more. She said, but I am, every afternoon going to have that piece of chocolate just to get like, okay. So pause.
Yeah.
Like we're demonizing berries and fruit, but we're okay with chocolate. Like, yes, there's a few antioxidants, but come on, people.
Right. So they are different sugars then, right? So like a refined sugar is different than the sugar, right? Mark, jump in there, Mark.
Yeah, well, you have there's sucrose, there's glucose, there's different types of sugars, but the refined sugars are just that, refined, meaning they're over processed, and they're very toxic because your body doesn't know what to do with them when you consume them. Even for athletes, you have to understand the glycemic index, and what that indicates is the rate that sugar from a good product like a banana or orange juice gets into your body, because you want to make sure that before you train and before you compete, you tend to go on a lower side of the glycemic index so that you have an even, kind of a pace or dripping of that sugar into your muscle. Whereas after training, you want to replenish the glycogen that you use up really quickly. So you want to have a higher glycemic carbohydrate. So there's a little bit of science to it if you're an athlete, but I think it applies across the board. We all remember, like say, pasta is very, very high glycemically. So you eat that big pasta meal for lunch, and then you go in and it's hot in the classroom, and your head starts to bob like this. Because you got this sugar rush, and then you get this big crash.
So you get a big sugar rush from pasta?
Oh yeah,
Molly. Is that correct, Molly?
Yeah.
Wow.
So here's the magic though of food is it's kind of like if you take any one food in isolation and just look at the glycemic index. But once you start combining foods, so if you have pasta with a salad, so fiber helps slow down that spike in blood sugars, or if you have pasta with protein helps slow down that spike in blood sugar. So there's some kind of magic you can work with food combinations as well, depending on what you're looking for. So as Mark's saying, like if you want to prevent that lunchtime post-lunchtime crash, is make sure if you're having pasta, have it with some fiber, have it with some protein. Watch your portion, keep your portion of the pasta smaller. So there's lots of things you can do to kind of balance out those blood sugars in other ways too, versus just saying, well, you can never eat carbohydrates again, because carbs are important. They're a very important fuel source to the body, demonized a lot, but they're very important fuel, especially for active people.
They see sourdough bread really reduces that as well, correct? Might be sold to bill of goods. So that is that good? Okay.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this. So not all sourdough bread is created equally. So true sourdough bread that is made with the fermented sourdough starter is a lower glycemic index as compared to, like, you can walk into a store and if you see a loaf of sourdough bread for like $2, it's not truly sourdough bread.
Right. Yeah, that is true. I went to Stop and Shop the other day. I asked the lady there making the breads. She said, "Oh yeah, we've got the sourdough starter." Well, actually, I asked her at first. She wasn't quite sure what I was saying, so I thought they probably don't have the sourdough starter stuff.
The other consideration about carbohydrate, it's very difficult to assimilate protein without carbohydrate. Like Molly said, matching or combining is a better term with the protein. So
see, that's really interesting. That's interesting how you combine those foods. Like I didn't realize that how you
Yeah.
combine foods. Huh? So what would be the ideal pregame meal for an athlete, for a hockey player, let's say?
Fist size protein. So chicken breast, piece of steak. To Molly's point, fist size portion of pasta. So it's an easy way to remember. And then a fist size portion of any kind of green vegetable. So I think you can't go wrong with that. And hydrate. No caffeine because it dehydrates you. So a lot of water, no fruit juice, but probably just water I would stick with.
Molly, what do you think?
Yeah. I would say one of the go-to meals a lot of guys I used to have that I worked with would be also salmon, asparagus, and rice.
Oh.
Sometimes, for whatever reason, and there's not science behind this, but some guys felt that their legs would feel heavy with pasta, so they'd go more the rice route.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's this, and Tom, you could talk to us more about this, but you score a goal that game, you have an amazing game, good points, and it's like that's the winning meal. So sometimes there's not a lot of science behind why it works, but if you feel good, that's key too.
Well, Ray Ferraro, right, Tom? Chicken parm.
Chicken parm, yeah.
So,
hey guys, hold on 1 second. We froze here, so I'm just going to unfreeze this. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Sure.
There's no one more suspicious or superstitious than a hockey player.
Oh, yeah.
So when we were on the road, the hotel you would stay in when you're on the road, the meal was the meal was the same old. Dead fish, had salmon, chicken, pasta, right? It was great but you know what? You get tired of it after a bit.
Yeah.
So every once in a while we'd sneak out and go somewhere else. But yeah.
It is funny too, because like you said, if a guy early in his career has like the best game of his life and it was chicken parm, like fried food, like it might not be what you would recommend, but there is an element of, I would always tell guys, if you can prove me wrong and show me that it works for you.
Yeah. Like, in the old days, like Bobby Orr would have like a steak and a baked potato, right? Everybody had a steak all the time. But yeah.
I think the guys now are much more in tune with their body and understanding nutrition and training. It's a different world because they're making so much money, and they're younger athletes in general, hockey players. So they've been also exposed to people like Molly and myself from an earlier age on. So they've developed good habits.
Yeah.
We used to have we called it the Irish spaghetti. So a big bowl of pasta with butter and cheese on it. Yeah. And then a bowl of vanilla ice cream with the chocolate syrup. That was
we thought the funniest thing, this is a funny story. So working in the league for a long time, there'd be guys sometimes, 17 to 20 felt pretty invincible, were so talented. They could kind of do whatever they wanted as far as, and they would just fly, right? Great power, great speed, great stats. And then usually somewhere around age 24, they're like, Molly, I don't know what just happened. Oh. These kids are so fast. I can't keep up. Like, what can I do? I know I've listened to you speak like 100 times, but I'm stuck. Like, what's going on? Yeah. It's such a fast game. It's
the other part of it too, Molly, is when you're younger, like you get hurt all the time, right? You always get hurt when you're playing, and you can play through anything. Like I had a torn tricep muscle that was rolled up in a ball in the back of my arm. I just kept playing through it. Later on in your career, like every little thing starts bothering you when you get to 30 years old. Gone.
Yeah.
Totally. All right, here's a good question for us from another veteran, a fine veteran, Mr. Haynes. Molly, I'm a diabetic. What are good, quick diabetic snacks?
Yeah. So back to the whole blood sugar equation, right? Some good diabetic snacks, one of my go-tos would probably be something like almonds or cashews or whatever kind of nut, like this is the downside to nuts though. Imagine a small handful, one tiny handful, like 22 almonds, if you want to be exact, is a portion. So can't eat them like popcorn, but I love nuts because it's protein, it's a little bit of fiber, and also fats, which helps fill you up. So that's one of my go-tos. And if you're going to have some sort of carbs, is just like we were saying earlier with the pasta, is make sure you're balancing out. So like if you're having an apple, maybe a little bit of peanut butter with it. That'll give you that kind of longer lasting energy, balance out those blood sugars. Even apple, and if you do dairy, like a cheese stick, that's another source of protein. But those would be some quick combinations that I would say I'd keep in the cupboard or stocked up on.
Mark, Mr. Puttenvink, what do you think?
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I'm not so well versed in the diabetic realm, but yeah, I mean, I eat, to Molly's point, cashews. I eat almonds. I can combine that with a little bit of dark chocolate. Those are my snacks, so to speak. And then they're, my meals are my meals. Usually in the morning, it's 3 eggs. I do 3 hard-boiled eggs. And I do some pickle with it.
Good point. I want to talk
Not
about
everybody's choice, but
Cool.
that's my choice. And then piece of salmon in the early afternoon, and then dinner is usually either chicken or some type of red meat in the fist-sized portions again. Yeah,
where you guys at with hummus? I make my own hummus. You like that?
Yeah.
Healthy?
great stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Hummus made from chickpeas, I guess how you would make it.
Yep.
Actually, my younger son saw on TikTok, I think it was, he's like, Mom, can we make this? And it was a cookie dough hummus.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it had just a drizzle of maple syrup in it. And it was the chickpeas all blended up with vanilla, a little maple syrup, and a pinch of salt. And it looked, the texture even almost looks like cookie dough.
oh, wow.
And it was a fun alternative to, certainly we
Yeah.
don't have a bowl of cookie dough in our fridge. So.
Yeah.
Tom, if I could ask Molly,
Yeah.
Molly, what's your opinion on the 3 eggs a day? I mean, there's so many.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing with eggs is eggs are really, it's been this don't eat eggs, eat
Yeah.
eggs. I've been a dietitian for 24 years. If I could count how many times it's gone back and forth. But the bottom line is eggs are nutrient dense. They are loaded with protein. They're inexpensive. They're easy to whip up. If you are predisposed to heart health issues in your family, I would definitely say to do some more egg whites to egg yolks. So like, if you have a family history of heart disease, let's say, is instead of 3 eggs a day, maybe do 4 egg whites and 1 whole egg. So you kind of get that yolk component.
What,
in
is
there.
the cholesterol in the yolk?
Yeah, it's concentrated in the yolk, and really in healthy people, a couple eggs a day is fine. But I have seen some folks with like just predisposed to heart health issues that you do have to kind of keep it in check. But here's the key thing. Funny story. I had a player once who was eating 13 eggs per day.
Wow.
So I have a saying that if some is good, more is not better. So when we say a couple eggs a day is okay, that doesn't mean a carton of eggs
Sure.
a day is advisable. So it's really all about balance, and I can't underscore that enough.
Right.
But
But that's
to me,
interesting
ironic
because
that-
a lot of trainers now for young hockey players, young athletes are asking the players to eat like 7 eggs a day. I was like, man, when I heard that, I was like, man, that's kind of overkill. But
yeah, the tough part is some of those young kids probably need 4,000, 5,000, like
Oh.
depending on their training load, need so much energy. And it is cheap. It's accessible. Most teenagers can make it. So I would probably try to work in some other protein sources there too. But yeah.
The beauty about the egg, though, it has the highest I think it's 98% bioavailability, meaning you're absorbing 98% of that protein.
Yeah.
So, and it's easy, to Molly's point, you boil them, you put them in your little backpack and you're good to go. Yeah.
here's some really good science right here. Doug DeVito, one of our listeners, Great Heart Remedy, stay single. That's science right there. He's researched all this too. Yeah.
I will prove you wrong. I've been happily married for going on 19 years, but I know that's not the case for everyone. So, you
I get
got
a
to
book-
do what works for you.
I got a friend of mine, this is Bill Burr. He's a comedian, pretty famous comedian. He's hilarious. He does this skit talking about how the divorce rates are like 50%, roughly. Use that number. He says, so now if you're going to go back, if you're going to go skydiving and you knew the rates were like 50%, but the chute wasn't going to open, would you do it? Would you jump out of the plane?
50-50.
Oh, he goes on and on about stuff, and it's just hilarious the way he does it too. Yeah.
He's
Wow.
great.
Although I'll say, Doug, if you ask my husband the same question, I don't know, maybe he has a different.
I met your husband. He seemed like
But
I didn't
doesn't
know it was your
affect
husband at the time.
cholesterol, which is the good thing.
What's that?
What's
It
that?
doesn't affect your cholesterol.
Oh, it does affect your cholesterol.
Sure.
True.
Oh God, it is funny. I've been single now.
Maybe, but not cholesterol.
I've been
Going
single
back
now
to
for
eggs,
about 4.
Molly, I think it's ironic that we're talking about the egg and not how we prepare it. That's a big part of it as well.
Sure.
But also just in general that we're concerned about eggs, yet take a walk around and they're selling every kind of drug now. There's a new one, is the Ozempic, and then there's Wegovy, I think it's another one.
Yeah.
But you never see a commercial saying, hey guys, eat 3 hard-boiled eggs a day, get out there, hike and run, do your thing. You won't have to worry about these drugs. It's just, it's an unfortunate situation.
What's the best way to have them? Is it hard boiled? Is that the healthiest way?
I think so, because you're not losing anything and it's convenient. It's easy. I mean, even I can boil an egg. So.
Oh my. All right. So bacon then. Let's stay on the breakfast. And where are we at with bacon?
I don't have a problem with it. Again, don't eat a pound of bacon, a few slices.
Yeah.
Is fine.
Right.
Yeah.
So
what you just said, Mark, is key. Like red and processed meats in general. I mean, there's decent research that shows that they are carcinogenic. But here's the thing: if you have a tiny piece of bacon or two once or twice a week, that's not the problem. It's the pound of bacon topped off by, you know, a 16-ounce steak. It's cumulative. So you have to kind of look at it big picture. And yeah.
And there's cured and uncured bacon too, right?
Yeah. So the carcinogenic properties are when they pump the nitrates, which is a preservative. When you consume a nitrate, it converts in your body to the nitrosamines, which are carcinogenic. Yeah. So if you're going to do bacon, make sure it's uncured, and it'll say right on there, nitrate free, and that's the way to go. And you again, just have a couple slices. It's a good source of some valuable nutrients, but just don't eat a pound. I mean, we all love bacon.
Bacon's good though. Oh man, even the smell of it and everything. Oh, that's just a great thing.
It's crack to men.
I know. I keep it up. Go ahead.
I've been a vegetarian since 2011, and bacon would probably be the one food that if I were to crack and like go back, that might be the food.
Yeah. Oh, just the smell of it, right? If somebody's cooking it in the house, the smell gets going. Oh my gosh. You know what it is for me? It's Kentucky Fried Chicken. I haven't had it in years now, but I used to have a thing like every 3 months. I didn't have to smell it or anything, but I wanted to go to Kentucky Fried Chicken and buy. I mean, I wouldn't just buy like a 3-piece meal. I'd buy like the 20-piece bucket, and I'd eat chicken for a week. And all the shit. By the time it was done, I never wanted to taste it again. But then 3 months later, here we go again. Start all over. Oh, it's funny. Terrible.
Well, I always tell people, don't worry about what happens on a 3-month or once a year frequency. It's the daily grind of what you're doing that you really need to dial in, because totally. Kentucky Fried Chicken a couple times a year isn't going to be what does you in.
But seriously, like the bag had grease all over me and everything. I was like, dive into the bucket. Oh God, it's funny.
And the biscuits, right? Is that a thing?
Oh, the mac and cheese and everything. Oh my goodness. Oh, yeah. And I get everything, right? I get all the sides.
This is like the secret, like true confessions here.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It is funny. I haven't done it in a long time. Like I haven't had fried food. I had fried food a few months ago, and it was amazing how bad I felt because I haven't had fried food. So now I feel terrible. I had some French fries at a hockey rink. Man, it's actually a good feeling how bad I felt because I realized now I really cleaned up my diet. So, yeah. All right, here's a good subject here too. Here's a subject for us. Barry Shelley, what are your thoughts on organic food versus regular food? Is it worth spending the extra money? Mr. Putnam, maybe dive in there.
I think organic's the only way to go. You are going to pay much more money. Again, it should be an inverse universe. It should be cheaper. But because the reason its prices are higher, because there's so many things that they have to satisfy the FDA with in the federal government. And so it drives the price up to prove that it's organic. But in any event, I would always go organic before I would go anywhere near anything that's non-organic. That's just my personal belief.
Molly?
Yeah, I think the tricky part is food is so expensive. And the other thing, though, I challenge people to think about is if you look at your grocery bill, where are you spending money that could be diverted to buying and where it makes sense to buy organic. And I don't know, Mark, if you agree, is your fruits, your vegetables, meat, milk. If you're like buying organic Doritos, like don't even waste the money. That's just my
I agree.
opinion.
Again, I'm looking at it from Doritos aren't even in my vocabulary.
But unfortunately,
100%. Yeah. So the staples, to your point, protein, carbohydrates, and your starches. Yeah, absolutely. And if you're going to get something else, maybe, I don't know. To your point, though, don't spend the extra money for organic if it's a small portion of what you're going to consume.
Yeah. And if somebody really looks at their food budget and they're like, no kidding, I can't afford to buy an organic pepper, which is like 3 times more.
Yeah.
I would rather still see someone eat a pepper and get those vitamins, minerals, fiber, phytonutrients, because that's all still there, even if it's not organic. So I do caution, like I personally choose to buy as much organic as I can also, but if it's a barrier to actually getting you to eat the fruits and vegetables and stuff you need to be eating more of. And then slowly, I'd say, start to shift dollars away from processed foods. And then you'd be surprised, like a bag of Doritos is something like $6. It's like, people say healthy eating is expensive, but junk food is crazy too.
Right.
So,
a bag of air, basically, too.
So, okay. So how do we really know it's organic then?
Labels.
Yeah.
No. Okay. But they can put labels on anything.
No.
How do you really know that it's grown organic?
That was my whole point. To be able to put that organic label on, you have to meet a lot of requirements for the federal government. So that's what drives the cost up. Molly, there's certain things like, now I've heard avocado doesn't pay to buy organic because the pesticides can't penetrate through the skin. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, there's all different theories on that. But then if you think about if something's being sprayed, right, and nutrients are coming in through the stem, that's where people still, I think, say, yeah, it might not be able to penetrate. But if the pesticides are in the soil and the tree is drinking, nutrients from the soil, it potentially could be.
Yeah,
so you guys are going to hate me for saying this, but I don't buy the whole thing. Growing up on a farm, I just don't like, how do they really prove that these farms that are thousands of acres big are not spraying this stuff?
Yeah.
Well,
So here's the other thing though, and to your point, and where there's a big debate in the agriculture world, and I'm not versed on all the ins and outs of it, but there are approved natural pesticides that organic farmers can use, which is where some people on the kind of polarizing perspective really dive in and say, you know what? Okay, yeah, you're eating organic pesticides then. So it's a big, messy world we live in. And I used to love having this conversation with my grandparents when they were alive, because they were farmers too, Tom. They grew up on a farm. And my grandma just couldn't wrap her brain around the thought process. And she grew up though, and same with you grew up eating food that was probably organically raised in some regards. Yep. It just wasn't certified and stamped as such. It's just a totally different time with our mass production of food. It's tricky. It's tricky to navigate. And I think science is going to continue to teach us more. I think we only know probably a fraction of the benefits.
See, that's a good point about the science, right? Because like you said before with eggs, for example, it's gone up and down. Like eggs used to be terrible for you, too much cholesterol. Now the science tells you it's good for you. So what's changed with the egg? Is it just new methods in the science?
Yeah, but so here's the problem. You can pull about any topic, a research study that shows eggs are bad.
Yep.
But it's kind of back to my point of, if we say eggs are good, nobody is saying drink or eat 13 eggs a day.
Right.
And it's kind of like, I don't mean to get on a super controversial topic, but let's talk about soy. Soy foods are absolutely healthy for your heart, good for your overall intake in moderation. The studies that have demonized soy, there was this one study where a guy was drinking, it was something like, I forget now if it was 2 liters of soy milk a day or something, like crazy quantities every single day. And he had kind of feminizing characteristics start to show up in his body because of the estrogen that's occurring in soy. Nobody is saying drink 2 liters of soy milk a day. That, like 2 liters of just other than water, anything is not beneficial. So that is the such hard part. If you try to isolate any one food, eggs, butter, bacon, soy, if you look at it in isolation, you can find a study that will show you any one of those foods is bad for you. But it's the overall context is how we eat them, the frequency, how we prepare them. and the volume that we consume. It's so hard when you try to look at any one food and say good or bad. It's really challenging.
Yeah.
It's important to know who's funding the study, number one. And number
Yeah.
two, what's the population? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
What's the population? And how large is the population? How many years was this over? So there's a lot of things to consider. But to Molly's point, you can find studies that say that eating 3 eggs a day is the healthiest thing you can do. You can find studies that say you're killing yourself. It's a little bit of, you got to use your common sense. You got to do a little research.
Yeah. But even doing, and I agree with you, Mark, but even doing research, like you can find different opinions doing the research too. Like some,
Like you said, you can find some, but what you need to do, then you have to do it, like I said, Tom, a deeper dive, find out who's funding it.
Yeah.
If it's somebody telling you that fat is bad and sugar is great, if it's promoted by a sugar company, well, then you know it's kind of, and it does happen. So you really need to look at that. And again, I think to me, the population is more critical because it tells you, you know, they came out today, they said if you weight train, do resistance training 3 days a week, you're going to have a greater chance of longevity. Well, yeah, of course, we've known this forever. But so, you know, and it's just like maybe Molly, you might remember, there was I forget what it was. It was a really popular supplement and it showed muscle growth. But the muscle growth, the population they used were burn victims.
Mm.
Oh.
And they juxtaposed that against athletes saying you're going to get a 400% increase of whatever.
Yeah.
But so you understand what I'm saying. So you really have to understand the population. It's critically important to make a decision either way.
Yeah.
Molly, kind of a controversial thing here. Maybe you're not up on it. Psilocybins. Are you familiar with psilocybins?
Oh yeah, you talked to me a little. Go ahead. I don't know all the ins and so like.
Well, to Mark's point, there's a former player, this Riley Cote, played for the Philadelphia Flyers, and he had the drug and alcohol issues, and really taught himself about psilocybins, and really is a big promoter. He's actually got a spot down in Jamaica because it's not legal. I think in some states it's legal, but he's in Pennsylvania. But really a huge believer. So we did a podcast with him, our Full Change podcast. Mm-hmm. And he was really like so high, and it seemed like he was really educated about it. So I thought, well, I need to go do my own research. And the same thing, you read 10 different articles, and there's 10 different opinions on whether it's good or bad, right?
After you brought this up, I did a little research. And to me, this is one of those topics of where I'm not sure. I think that there's probably some really good cases of where it makes sense, but just because there's some good cases of where it makes sense doesn't mean it makes sense for the broader population.
Yeah.
And I think science will probably continue to teach us more about that topic as well. And certainly the legality would need to come along with it to make it reasonable for a broader population implementation. But that's the cool thing about science, though. And that is the one thing I love about doing this job is you can, like, I have never stopped learning. Like there is always, and I love when someone comes to me and they're like, what about this? I'm like, I don't know. Let's figure it out.
Totally. Yeah. Mark, I know you're really all natural, right?
Yeah, but to Molly's point about, evolving. So Peter Twist, who was a strength coach up in Vancouver for Canucks for a long time, mm-hmm. He came out in a seminar and stood in front of 250 coaches and says, I don't know anything. Everybody went, what's this? Right? What he meant to say is what he did 20 years ago is not what he's doing today. What he did 10 years ago, he's not doing today. What he's doing 5 years. So it evolves. And maybe he keeps some of the past. And it's the same thing in research. If you follow timelines, research change, not the research, but the results of the research may change over time. And again, it goes back to who's funding, what's the population, and various factors. So you just got to it's really boils down, you got to stay on top of stuff. And what works for Tom Laidlaw may not work for me. What works for Molly may not work for me. And so you have to find what works for you with your diet. Well, nutrition is pretty cut and clear. There's certain things you need to do. But in terms of what your food choices are, they may vary person to person. And what you can tolerate. I can't do dairy. So whey protein is a great supplement. For me, it's a disaster. So I got to if I'm going to go to a protein powder, it's going to be pea protein or plant-based. So again, it's individual, but there are certain truths that are across the board that Molly would agree to. Yeah.
Here's another one of our veterans up in beautiful Buffalo, New York, Ron Jameson. Mm-hmm. What's the best fish for a daily input diet? Molly?
Salmon, baby, salmon.
Oh, I love salmon.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, salmon from a nutrient standpoint, you get the omega-3s, which help reduce inflammation in the body. And we were talking about heart health earlier, certainly very heart healthy. And really the only fish I don't recommend would be like from a daily perspective would be fried fish. There's benefits to white fish as well. They're very protein rich, of course. And I am a big proponent of, we're talking organic and whatnot earlier. If you can buy wild caught fish and afford it, buy it. Farm raised fish, if you really look into what that means, is a really
It's nasty.
little bit frightening of a situation. If you can, and then my other last little thing on fish, this is so interesting. If you're a fisherman, salmon only run certain times a year, right?
Mhm.
You can't just, fish for salmon. Well, I guess if you travel around the world, you might be able to, but don't worry about paying top dollar for fresh fish in the fish counter.
There you go.
Because it has been frozen.
Yeah.
90, I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but most of it has been frozen. Very rarely is it truly like a fresh piece of fish.
Yeah.
So just save the money, go to the freezer section, buy wild caught, whatever kind of fish you're buying.
I'm with you. So I keep mine frozen. I get it from Costco.
Yeah.
Throw it right into the skillet or my air fryer, frozen, and it comes out great. Like it's nice and juicy and it's good.
Yeah.
Cod's good too. I like cod. Oh, cod's good fish.
Yeah, we
Well,
have
what's-
one actually on the menu this week.
Oh,
What's
nice.
the concern with tuna and the mercury?
What's my perspective?
Yeah, what's a safe level? What in other words, with the mercury levels, because there's a concern with tuna in particular.
Yeah, tuna a couple times a week in like a 3-ounce portion, or you are using the fist, like kind of palm of your hand type reference. A portion or two of tuna a week should be fine to keep your mercury levels in check. And it's that kind of same thing, like, just like you don't need bacon every day. Some people might disagree with me because it tastes great, but tuna you need to eat in moderation.
There are higher incidence in mercury in tuna as opposed to salmon because
Yes.
but that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so Molly, I'm going to disagree with you just a little bit, so we can have a little bit of a debate here. Okay.
Whoa.
So I did some research. Mark and I were talking about the wild salmon as opposed to the farm raised.
Okay.
Now, some people think the state of our water supply, our oceans, our lakes, and everything, with all the chemicals in there, that it's got a lot of chemicals in those fish as well. What do you think?
Have you seen how farm raised salmon are fed?
I've done a lot of reading, and here's another thing. I've really probably not as much as you two, but I also read where in Canada and Norway, one of the concerns is they're feeding the farm raised fish antibiotics because they're all so tight together. But in Canada and Norway, they're not allowed to do that. So they think, so in certain countries, the farm raised salmon they don't believe is a bad thing because they're feeding them different.
But economically, to save money, I don't want to get into the details, but Molly will back me up.
Yeah.
It's what they're feeding them. It's farm waste because it's cheap and it's available. So when we talk about the wild caught, so Norway's a perfect example. Would you rather swim or drink water out of a fjord in Norway or out of the Hudson River? So where is that fish residing before we snatch it to eat? That's really critically important. That's why the salmon I buy is from Norway.
So the salmon that is a farm raised salmon is fed farm waste. You're talking like manure from cows.
In most cases, yeah.
Wow.
Therein lies a huge problem.
And they say that the farm raised salmon is white. They dye it that pink salmon color. This farm raised salmon is a different color.
I have heard that too, and I'm not 100% sure that's always the case.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, I think fish is a really, really interesting topic. Yeah. And as our water situation continues to become problematic, I think probably, you were using the answer, Mark, of like how what we say today might change in another few years. I think fish is going to be one of those areas. And probably to say all farm raised fish is bad is probably not the case, but I don't know right now with our food systems a way to say, well, this farm raised salmon is is good versus this is not good.
Because I pooped in the South Pacific when I was on Survivor. So those salmon are eating my poop.
Well, maybe it'll go full circle. That's what you got to look
It's
at.
true. You're right. That's right. I'm just flushing it out. Oh God, I've told this story so many times, Molly, where you don't think things through all the time when you go on a Survivor, and there's no toilets, there's no toilet paper, so you have to poop, especially when you're eating all these coconuts. I didn't realize what a diuretic the coconuts were. So they teach you to go out in the ocean. They do it. They call it aqua bomb. But it's funny because when you poop, now it's floating on top of the water, and the waves are crashing in, and you're running away from your own poop trying to get to the shore.
Well, what it is, it's a combination of a valuable part of your life, but it's also gets you to work on your movement.
You ever try to run in? You ever try to run in the water too? It's like that slow motion run. Like you can't get your legs. Oh, terrible stuff. So funny stuff. All right, we'll end on that note. Great job here today, guys. Very informative for everybody. You know what I like too is I like that we can have a little bit of debate about things. Like Molly said, there's always different opinions and stuff, and I think it's important. Like try to educate ourselves and say, why do you have this opinion, right? So you can.
Yeah, I'd like to next week get Molly's opinions on some of the extreme like carnivore diets and all these wild like new. I mean, there's some people that swear by it, like Jordan Peterson, Canadian. His daughter was critically ill with autoimmune disease. And when she went on a strictly carnivore diet, it all cleaned up. But again, that's her, not for me. So I'd like to talk about that.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's a very, very good topic. And I'll be ready.
Perfect. Fasting too. We throw fasting in there too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because there's some controversy that just came out about fasting.
Oh, okay. Cool. Like it. All right, everybody. Have a fantastic week. We see everybody next Tuesday at 10 a.m.
Thanks, guys.